Good morning, everyone. So, in relationship to my last video where we talked about the bridegroom being lifted away, I wanted to come back and talk about the fasting in those days. So, first of all, as I touched on in the last video, the days mentioned here, the days that will come in those days, are the days of Daniel's second half of the 70th week prophecy, which are 1335 days. These days conclude into the finishing of the third watch time with actually a little carryover into the fourth watch time, which in the Hebrew text is the shachar, translated black redness in the Devar translation. So again, the days here when they will fast are the blissful here of the third watch time. Here's the chart. Okay, where I have Mark 13:35 and Luke 12:38 here, okay, where blissful are those, third watch time context. Midnight is when the sober-minded virgins enter the wedding, the door is shut, the bridegroom is lifted away from those locked out. Watch my last video. So those days, 1335, encompass the third watch time. Then they will fast. Now, interestingly enough, if you search just the epistle of Isaiah and you look up the word fast, you find these hits here, but this is not fasting here. This is fastener, like you're fastening something. This is just added for context. So fasting and fast is only found here in Isaiah 58 in these verses. So understand the they here in Luke 5:35 are these speaking here. Okay, and again, according to the timeline of the fasting here, when we move down to verse 8, we see the black redness is mentioned here. So then will be split open as the black redness, your light. So this is the black redness. Okay, this word in most other translations is just simply translated morning, which is actually the fourth watch time. So conceptually, this is the early red dawn where they're coming into the 1335 days, which again is a little bit leading into the beginning of the fourth watch time, okay? And then if we just back up here to these previous two verses, we see some keywords, which will bring us back into some of the other parables of Jesus. So, is not this a fasting that I choose to open the oppressing bonds of wickedness, to unleash the strap bunch of the yoke bar, and to send forth the cracked as exempted? Here we go. Here's a key word, which brings us back to Matthew chapter 12, verse 20. So when Jesus said that a reed having been battered together, he will not crack down. So here in the Greek text, the word has the additional preposition governing that which is down. So here, this would be even worse than just cracked. So the cracked as exempted ones, and that you tear asunder every yoke bar, is it not to split off in equal parts to the hungry one your bread? So this here is, they're exempted ones as cracked, but here he will not crack down, and a smoldering linen wick he will not extinguish. Remember, the awakening of all of the virgins is the resurrection, where they all have lamps, but they don't all have oil. So the foolish, they said to the sober-minded, give us of your oil, since our brightening lamps are going to extinguish. However, the good news is that a reed having been battered together, he will not crack down, and a smoldering linen wick he will not extinguish, till, as it were, he drives out the judgment into that which conquers, into that which will conquer, into the right-hand completion here, okay? And when we understand how to correctly cut the word of truth here, we also understand that the sheep of Matthew chapter 25, before the left named are cut off, are third watch timers. So when we come back to Isaiah 58 here, and we go to the next verse right here, is it not to split off in equal parts to the hungry one? Key word, hungry one. Your bread. The bread is the figure of the body of Christ, the communion of Christ into the completion of Christ's right hand here, which cuts off at Matthew 25:40. Matthew 25:41 are the cursed. It says, when you see a naked one, so these two key words, naked and hungry, take us to Matthew 25. For I hungered and you gave me to eat. Speaking of the audience we just read in Isaiah. I thirsted, you gave me to drink. I was guesting, you led me together with you. Bare was I, and you cast about me a raiment. So these are third watch timers here who come into the right-hand completion, concluding at verse 40, who are my least brothers, where then the left named, who are the cursed here, are into the judgment of the final Aeonian fire, or the Gehenna, hell fire judgment, having been prepared for the Diabolos and his angels. So when we understand how to correctly cut the word of truth, which wisdom is given through these watchtime parables, we can categorize every word of prophecy in the entire Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. And we can do this through these key words. Hungered, bare, blissful, okay? Again, the relationship of this word, blissful are those, concerns first, second, and third watch times. Eventide, midnight, cock-a-doodle-doo. There is no blissful are those for the fourth watch time mentioned in this verse, because that's the curse. So, again, when we connect these dots with key words, we see that in the so-called Beatitudes, Matthew chapter 5, when Jesus began heralding, he was speaking to a third watch time audience here. Blissful are the hungering and the thirsting ones, which points back to Matthew 25. Hence, for I hungered, and you gave me to eat. I thirsted, and you gave me to drink. Where Jesus, using the personal pronoun, is not speaking of himself personally, but his body, that which belongs to him. His body, me, I. And then, again, if we just back up here to verse 32, when all the nations will be led to be segregated, we see here, just as the herdsmen segregate the sheep from the kids, the right from the left, third, fourth watch time paradigm here. So the herdsmen, who are the sheep of the courtyard, are John chapter 10. The door of the courtyard of the sheep, who are the herdsmen, is not the door of the wedding. When we enter the wedding here, we become the angels who officiate over the third watch timers, who still have boots on the ground. We're dispatched as the angels to lead the outchosen out of the four winds. Think about it.